welcome to the Deep Dive. So, you're tuning in today, and chances are you've reached a pretty solid level with your English. You get the grammar, your vocabulary's decent, and you can follow along with conversations okay. Maybe you're even watching English shows without needing the subtitles all the time.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You're past those first big hurdles, which is, a huge accomplishment. But the question now becomes, how do you go from just being fluent to really, truly mastering the language? How do you use it not just to, get your point across, but to actually connect with people on a deeper level? That's what we're digging into today.
Exactly. So our mission here in this deep dive is to really unpack what advanced English proficiency actually looks like and sounds like. It's more than just knowing a bunch of big sophisticated words, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. That's a really common misconception. Advanced English. It's much more about the subtle art of communication. It's being able to express those finer shades of meaning, those emotions, like the difference between being a bit irritated versus absolutely furious, and having your tone, even your body language, kind of match up with what you're saying. Plus, really getting humor, especially the tricky stuff like sarcasm and irony, where what's said isn't quite what's meant.
And adaptability too, right?
Yeah.
Knowing when to be a bit more formal versus when you can be relaxed and casual, depending on who you're talking to, the whole situation.
Precisely. And a really key part of advanced English is being able to think critically in the language. So that means understanding different perspectives, having thoughtful discussions, expressing your own ideas clearly with nuance. It's about mastering that whole communication spectrum, really.
I remember reading this story, it really kind of highlighted this for me, about a student, Anna, from Poland. Her English grammar was like perfect, aced every test. But when she actually moved to an English-speaking country, she found connecting with people socially surprisingly tough. She'd use these really formal phrases in just everyday chats, almost like she was reading from a textbook. Meeting someone for coffee and saying, "It is a pleasure to make your acquaintance."
Right. And it's interesting because technically her English was flawless, but it just didn't quite land right in those casual interactions. It sounded a bit, stiff, out of place. Even though grammatically she knew her stuff inside out, it just goes to show knowing the rules isn't quite the same as knowing how to use the language naturally, conversationally.
And that's really the core of what we're diving into here. This isn't about memorizing obscure grammar rules or endless vocab lists. Our focus is on helping you sound, natural, authentic, genuinely expressive in English, so you can move past just being understood to really connecting with people. Okay, so let's start exploring some actual strategies.
So, thinking about someone aiming for that more native-like command, where should you really be focusing your energy?
Well, the first, probably most fundamental shift is changing how you learn. Instead of just, studying English like another school subject, you need to start absorbing it more like a native speaker actually does.
Yeah, that's a key perspective shift. I mean, early on, that structured approach, grammar drills, vocab lists, it's helpful, definitely. But to get to that advanced level, the focus really has to shift towards immersing yourself in how English is genuinely used, out there in the real world.
Just think about, how do native speakers learn? They just grow up surrounded by it, right? Hearing it, seeing it used constantly in all sorts of natural situations. So one of the best things you can do is actively seek out and really engage with content that's made for native English speakers.
And it's amazing how much stuff is out there now. You've got popular comedies like The Office, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Modern Family. Those shows are fantastic for seeing everyday chat, humor, social stuff. Or if you're into drama, series like Suits, Breaking Bad, The Crown, they expose you to more complex language, different ways people express emotion, different levels of formality.
And definitely don't forget YouTube. I mean, countless vloggers sharing daily life, documentaries on everything imaginable, interviews. But it's not just about passively watching, is it? You can't just let it wash over you.
No, absolutely not. You need to be an active observer, really pay attention. How do people greet each other? Is it a quick hey, a more formal hello? Something else entirely depending on the situation. Notice the idioms they use, the slang. How do they show they're hesitating or really excited or even subtly sarcastic, with their word choice, their tone? Start building up your own little phrase book, maybe mental, maybe written down, of this real English and how it's actually used.
And reading too, not just listening. It's crucial. Time to move beyond those simplified texts for learners and dive into authentic stuff. novels, nonfiction books you're actually interested in, opinion pieces in newspapers, magazines.
Yeah, and a key thing there is noticing how good writers use language. Not just to give information, but to convey emotion, perspective, to persuade. Reading opinion columns, for example, shows you how native speakers argue their points, express feelings in a really nuanced, sophisticated way. That's where you start to get that intuitive feel for the language beyond just knowing what the words mean on the surface.
Okay, so strategy 1. Learn like a native, immerse yourself in real English content, listening, reading, and actively analyze how it's used. Got it. What's next on the path to advanced English?
The next really powerful step is to actively start thinking in English. Sounds maybe obvious, but for a lot of learners, it requires a real conscious effort to change how they process things.
Okay, let's dig into this. Thinking in English. If you've spent years sort of translating everything in your head, how do you even start making that switch?
Well, it starts with deliberate practice, consistency. A great way to begin is just simple self-talk. Like, try this right now. Just think for a moment about what you might do after listening to this. Now, try to describe those thoughts silently to yourself, but entirely in English.
It sounds almost too simple.
Yeah.
But I can see how that would start building that new mental pathway.
It's interesting, yeah, how effective it can be, because when you mentally narrate your everyday stuff in English, you're basically skipping that translation step from your native language. You might just think, oh, okay, gonna make some tea now, think I'll add a bit of honey today, just internally.
So like being your own internal commentator, just describing the small things as they happen, all in English.
Exactly. Or you can use it to reflect, that meeting this morning actually went pretty well, felt like I got my ideas across clearly. This kind of mental rehearsal, it's invaluable for getting quicker at grabbing the English words you need and putting sentences together without consciously translating first.
So the main benefits of really pushing yourself to think in English?
Well, first, it massively boosts your speaking fluency. When you're not mentally translating, your speech just becomes smoother, more natural sounding. Second, it really helps with vocabulary recall. You're pulling English words directly, not via your first language. And finally, it deepens your gut feeling for English sentence structure. You basically become your own 204/7 English practice partner.
That makes a lot of sense.
Okay,
so learning like a native, thinking like a native, what's after that?
Next up is using advanced vocabulary, but in a way that sounds, well, natural and authentic. This is an area where even advanced learners can sometimes trip up a bit.
Right, because it's tempting, isn't it, to just learn loads of really complex academic-sounding words, thinking that makes you sound smarter or more fluent.
Yeah.
But yeah, often it just sounds unnatural.
Precisely. Truly fluent English isn't about dropping the most obscure word you know into a sentence. It's about communicating clearly, effectively, genuinely. Like, think about the difference between saying, the atmospheric conditions of the locale engendered feelings of nostalgia versus just, the place felt nostalgic. It reminded me of my childhood.
Yeah, the second one is just so much more direct, relatable.
And often, simpler language is actually more impactful. So instead of only focusing on complex words, advanced learners should really prioritize mastering things like phrasal verbs, you know, those super common verb plus preposition combos native speakers use constantly, like get over it, look forward to, catch up.
And collocations too, right?
Like
words that just naturally sound right together, like heavy traffic, not strong traffic. Strong coffee, not powerful coffee.
Exactly. Collocations are key. And idioms, those colorful expressions like under the weather, break the ice, spill the beans, they add real richness, a natural flavor. Also, paying attention to the small differences between similar words. Understanding, say, frustrated versus annoyed or amazed versus impressed, that allows for much more precise expression.
So how can listeners actively learn this kind of natural vocabulary and actually start using it?
Well, there are some great tools now. Uglish.com is fantastic. You can see videos of native speakers using specific words or phrases in context. LingQ is another good one for learning vocabulary through interesting content you read and listen to. And honestly, a simple, low-tech approach works wonders. Keep a dedicated, real English notebook. Jot down natural expressions you hear or read. Note the context. Reviewing that regularly really helps embed them.
So the key is focusing on the vocabulary native speakers actually use day to day, not just trying to memorize lists of difficult, rarely used words.
Exactly. And then the crucial part is actually trying to use them. Weave them into your own speaking, your writing, experiment, see how they feel.
Okay, learn like a native, think in English, use natural advanced vocabulary. What's the next essential piece?
The next absolutely vital step, and often the one that feels the most daunting for learners, is actively seeking out chances to speak with real people.
Ah, yes. Putting it all into practice. Live conversations. I can definitely see how that feels like a big hurdle.
It is, but it's so important to remember. Making mistakes isn't just okay, it's essential, is how you learn. You just can't reach real fluency locked away studying on your own. You have to test your English out in genuine interactions, even if it feels a bit nerve-wracking initially.
So what are some practical ways people listening can actually find these opportunities to talk with native or fluent English speakers?
Thankfully, there are more options now than ever before, really. Language exchange apps are great. Tandem, HelloTalk, italki, they connect you with native speakers who are often learning your language, so it's a supportive, mutual thing.
That sounds like a good setup. Finding practice partners who actually get the challenges involved.
Definitely. You can also look for local English-speaking clubs, maybe online Zoom meetups based on hobbies or interests, even Discord groups for language practice. And for people who are maybe a bit more comfortable speaking in front of others, Toastmasters is fantastic. It's all about practicing public speaking in a really structured, encouraging way, great for building confidence.
So the main message here is, be proactive. Go find ways to speak, even if you don't feel 100% ready. The more you actually do it, the more natural it'll feel, the more confident you'll get.
Exactly. Fluency isn't about perfection, it's about effective communication and just being willing to learn and improve through actually doing it.
Okay, so we're learning, thinking, using the right vocabulary, and speaking. What's the next crucial skill for getting to that advanced level?
The next key element is actively practicing what we might call deep listening. This goes way beyond just understanding the basic meaning of the words someone says.
Okay, deep listening. What does that really mean in practice?
Well, it's interesting how much communication happens beyond the literal words, right? Native speakers talk fast, sometimes they blend words, they use subtle cues, sarcasm, implied meanings, emotional undertones. Deep listening is about training your ears to catch all those more nuanced layers of communication.
So understanding the subtext, the unspoken stuff.
Precisely. To build this skill, try listening regularly to podcasts at their normal speed. Good ones like The Daily, Stuff You Should Know, This American Life, they offer diverse topics, accents, styles. Watching movies, TV shows without subtitles, also incredibly helpful. And don't be afraid to rewind. Rewatch scenes. Focus on how the actors are speaking, not just the words.
Yeah, I can see how trying to mimic them, like shadow their speech, could be useful too.
Oh, absolutely. Shadowing, where you try to repeat what you hear as closely as you can, matching the rhythm, intonation, pronunciation that helps you internalize the natural flow. Pay special attention to intonation, the rise and fall of the voice. That carries so much emotion and emphasis. And always think about the context. What's the situation? That helps interpret everything you hear.
You mentioned a specific exercise before for deep listening.
Yes. Try this. Find a short clip, maybe 30 seconds, from a show or podcast. Listen carefully, maybe 3-4 times. Then, try write down everything you hear, word for word. Next, shadow it repeat along with the speaker, focusing on matching their rhythm and tone. Finally, really analyze it. How does their tone, their intonation, change the meaning? You'll be surprised how much information comes through pauses, laughter, sighs. Those nonverbal cues are crucial.
That sounds like a really focused way to train your ears to pick up on those subtleties.
It is, and it really drives home that fluent communication is about so much more than just dictionary definitions.
Okay, learning, thinking, vocab, speaking, deep listening. What's our sixth key strategy?
The sixth vital element is getting a handle on the cultural side of English. Language and culture are they're deeply intertwined, you can't really separate them.
That makes total sense. You can know all the grammar, have tons of words, but still miss the mark if you don't get the cultural context behind why someone says something a certain way.
Exactly. It's fascinating how culture shapes language use. Why might someone say, oh, it's not a big deal, when maybe someone else would be more obviously concerned? Or think about British humor, often relies on understatement, dry sarcasm. Even simple phrases like no worries can feel slightly different depending on the culture, the tone.
So understanding the culture gives you the framework to interpret tone, humor, social rules, etiquette correctly.
Precisely. And you can build this understanding in enjoyable ways. Watch stand-up comedians Trevor Noah, John Mulaney. They often riff on cultural observations. Follow English-speaking vloggers sharing their daily lives. You pick up on everyday cultural stuff. And, actually reading about customs, holidays, history of English-speaking places gives you that deeper background.
So by engaging with the culture, you're not just learning language in a bubble. You're learning about the people, their world.
Exactly. Understanding that cultural dimension makes your English feel more natural, more appropriate, and honestly, just more alive and meaningful.
Okay, fantastic. We've covered so much. Learning like a native, thinking in English, natural vocab, speaking, deep listening, cultural understanding. What's the final piece? The seventh key strategy for really mastering advanced English.
The final key strategy really is about building a long-term sustainable plan. You need consistency. Reaching an advanced level, it's not a quick sprint, is it? It's much more like a marathon. It needs steady effort and a smart approach over time.
Right. So what does a practical long-term plan actually look like for someone?
Well, the best plans are usually varied, integrated into your routine. Maybe something like this, as a sample week. Monday, focus on reading. A decent-length article, maybe a book chapter. Then summarize the main points out loud in English. Tuesday, watch 30 minutes of a show or movie, no subtitles. Actively note down maybe 3-5 new expressions you hear, look them up later. Wednesday, just 15 minutes of dedicated self-talk. Describe your day's plans, reflect on something. Thursday, set aside 30 minutes for conversation, language partner, tutor, whatever works. Friday, listen to a podcast, but actively mimic the speaker's intonation for a few minutes. Shadowing. Weekend, maybe challenge yourself to write something, an opinion piece, a short story. Get feedback if you can.
That sounds really well-rounded. It hits different skills throughout the week.
The absolute key is consistency. Even just a focused 30 minutes every day adds up massively over a year. You have to make it a habit, like anything else important in your routine.
So it's about weaving these different strategies into your life in a way that you can actually stick with long-term.
Exactly, creating that sustainable path for ongoing growth and refining your English.
Well, this has been incredibly helpful. We've really covered a lot today on how to push past that intermediate plateau and truly aim for mastery in English.
Yes, and just to quickly run through those 7 strategies again. 1, learn like a native, immerse yourself. 2, think directly in English. 3, focus on natural advanced vocabulary, phrasal verbs, idioms, collocations. 4, speak with real people. Don't fear mistakes. 5, practice deep listening for nuance. 6, understand the cultural context. And 7, build that consistent long-term plan.
It's definitely a journey, but it sounds like a really rewarding one. And for you listening, you've already come so far.
Yeah.
You're past the basics, and now you've got these tools, these strategies to step confidently into that richer, more nuanced world of advanced English. With these approaches, you really are on your way, becoming not just someone learning English, but a confident speaker, a thinker in English, a real global communicator.
Absolutely. And just remember, language learning is always an adventure. Growth, discovery, connection. It keeps going.
And on that note, here's a final thought to leave you with. Language isn't just about the words you say. It's really about how you connect with the world and with the people around you. So keep practicing, keep exploring, and keep enjoying this incredible journey with the English language. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.